All right. So inorganic chemistry may keep its notes separate from the other topics that we're doing in face-to-face class. Group third period elements के बाद the next topic or chapter आप कह लें इसको is group 2 elements. Group 2 elements. Now group 2 in fact represents metals. Group 1 आप लोगों ने IGCSE में पढ़ा and they expect you to know the reactions of sodium, potassium, lithium with water and oxygen and all. But they've included group 2 again to present other metals in the periodic table, just like third period element represents all the periods in the periodic table. तो इसी तरह group 2 generally metals को present कर रहा है. For non-metals, after this we have group 7 elements. Now if I'll just list down the metals in group 2, because group 2 are all metals, we have beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, and barium towards the end. So as we go down, the atomic size increases. So if I list these elements, first one is beryllium, Be. Second is magnesium, calcium, strontium, and barium. The first one is beryllium. Be is beryllium. इसको मैं फिर से लिख देता हूँ. Someone is on mute. So the first is beryllium, Be. फिर उसी तरह लिखा गया, but I hope you know it is beryllium. Okay, so if I list down some of the trends that you need to know down the group, like for group 2 even, पहले लिख लेते हैं, फिर आप लोग खुद try करें. It's like atomic size, ionic size or ionic radius. Like when these metals turn to ions, they make positive 2 ions. So how would the size of these ions and atoms change? Then we have this melting point. Like as if we are going down the group, how would these trends change? ये MCQs में आते हैं. Sometimes they plot the graphs for you. Okay, with respect to the AR of the element, how would the melting point change, increase, decrease, whatever, like say same, इस तरह के questions. So if we list these trends in the start, तो फिर उन questions में आपको MCQs में especially help होगी. And then one more, at least we can write, or just for revision, 2 more points. Shielding effect, we done that in atomic structure topic chapter. Shielding effect. And then the last as reactivity. So as when you are in face-to-face class, so I tell students to fill these blanks for me, लेकिन ये capture है मैं खुद ही लिख देता हूँ, but I expect you to know all these points at this stage. As I've shown, the atoms become bigger down the group, right? Because number of shells increase, number of electrons increase, so atomic size increases. And ionic size also increase because they all lose 2 electrons and become positive 2 eventually, because they're all group 2 metals. So ionic radius or ionic size also increases. Melting point is tricky. इसमें बच्चे अक्सर उल्टा लिख के आते हैं. Metals में as you go down the group, the melting point decrease. It's not कि if the metal is heavier or bigger, so its melting point will be more. In fact, if metal atoms are small, they'll be tightly packed up together. Like if these are the atoms of beryllium and they are like positive 2, and against that if we have bigger atoms of say strontium, so bigger atoms may the packing cannot be that tight, and the charge spreads over a bigger area, and when the electrostatic attractions are spread over large area, the metallic bond strength becomes less. So when metallic bond strength is less, the melting point would also be less. As when we go down the group, metals में याद रखेंगे melting point decreases. ये MCQs में typically इनमें से examiner melting point पूछ रहा होता है, because sometimes students think it in their mind कि जी जितना नीचे जाएंगे metal बड़ी हो रही है size में, melting point ज़्यादा होगा. It's not like that. Shielding effect. Could someone tell me what would be the shielding effect down the group? Increase होगा, decrease होगा?
Increase होगी sir.
increase होगा.
Increase होगा, good. Because shielding effect depends on number of inner shells, and as we go down, the number of inner shells increase, hence shielding effect increases.
Reactivity increase भी होगी.
And reactivity also increases, because as we go down, metals become bigger, and metal's reactivity is directly proportional to its size, because metal has to lose electron. If metal is big in size, it could actually lose that outer shell electron easily. So reactivity be down the group increases. So these are like very basic concepts, and I would say that many of these we have done in atomic structure and otherwise. Like atomic structure में मैंने आप लोगों को ionic और atomic size का trend बताया था. So, and if the concept is easy, so what is needed is that you just revise it once at least and try and retain it. Because अगर आप easy concepts को भी mix करते हैं और बार बार भूलते हैं और आपको मतलब शील्डिंग नहीं पता चल रही कि शील्डिंग होती क्या और डाउन द ग्रुप कैसे होगी, तो फिर again in MCQs at time you need 2-3 level concept to solve one question. तो easy concept भी अगर आप भूल रहे हैं, you're not retaining them, then you know such questions become more difficult which need multiple level concept application. तो अभी इसमें कोई question है पूछ लें. I'll be using new slide again because it takes a lot of time to erase, and then maybe someone might be writing it still. Well, maybe I can start on the right hand side. इसके अच्छा group 2 के बाद हमारा it's like basic introduction points के बाद हमारा group 2 के reactions हैं. जैसे मैंने third period elements के reactions किए थे. Now we have reactions of group 2 elements. And these are quite easy and logical reactions. Like the first one is with oxygen or air. Oxygen or air. I mean, when you burn metals of group 2 in air, it's technically the oxygen which reacts. So they all react to make oxides. Like beryllium plus oxygen would be beryllium oxide. And all these reactions happen in presence of flame. I mean, we don't heat them in evaporating dish. Heat ये होता है कि आप powder डाल के उसको metal में evaporating dish में डाल के metal को you're heating it. So we are not doing that. We are actually heating these metal powders on flame or Bunsen burner. So we put that metal on a spatula, some powder, beryllium or magnesium, and we just bring it in the flame and we try and see what color flame would be. इनमें कुछ metals के flame colors आपके syllabus में, the ones that I'll be writing, वो आपने याद रखते हैं. Like this beryllium gives white or bright flame. But that as such is not in syllabus because magnesium also gives the same flame. ये आपने पढ़ा है IGCSE में भी, तो मैं बस उसका लिख दूंगा.
Sir,
Magnesium.
2 beryllium ही होगा.
हाँ, बैलेंस करना है तो 2 and 2 कर देंगे दोनों sides पे. Okay, so when
Sir, state symbols.
हाँ स्ट्रेट सिंबल्स तो आने चाहिए. बताओ फातिमा, आप ही बताओ. beryllium की स्ट्रेट बताओ. शाबाश.
Sir, solid.
Solid. ऑक्सीजन की बताओ.
Gas.
Nice. And the product, if the product has a metal in it, it would be solid. Same
Okay,
would
sir.
be the states for all the reactants and products in this reaction. Again, we have flame magnesium oxide formed and solid. But in case of magnesium oxide, the flame is white, bright or dazzling white flame. Bright white flame. If you see someone who's welding on the workshop, जो weld कर रहे होते हैं metal को, they're wearing those black glasses and all. तो अगर आप उस बंदे को ना देखें, अगर वो वेल्ड जंग कर रहा है, अगर आप देखें उसका जो फ्लेम और स्पार्क होता है, it's so bright you can't look at it. So that actually is because the welding rod has some magnesium powder towards the end. और जब वो heat produce करता है, it melts down the iron, and that's used to patch up the broken place. तो magnesium का जो flame है, it is white or dazzling white flame. ये आपने याद रखना है. अच्छा, इसके बाद फिर next में कैल्शियम का रिएक्शन है, सारी मेटल्स के रिएक्शन हम लिखेंगे. This seems to be erasing better now, so I'll erase this. So after beryllium, magnesium, we have calcium. Calcium could react with oxygen, and that makes calcium oxide. Again, it will be done in flame, and in this case,
Sir, ये red flame और
you know, अगर आप मुझे इसका फ्लेम का कलर बता रहे हैं तो yes, it's red, and solid calcium oxide is 2 and its flame is like red. And then after beryllium, magnesium, we have calcium, strontium. Strontium plus oxygen react to make strontium oxide, and in fact strontium oxide ka flame bhi red hai, but we don't expect that from you. In fact calcium ka is light red, or we call it brick red, जैसे bricks होती हैं light red, reddish color की. And strontium oxide is actually bright red or crimson red, उसको हम कहते हैं. This one is bright red, but as such it's not required. उसकी reason ये है कि at time they expect you to know the color of calcium, and you know they say a metal X is heated in flame and the flame turns red, so they expect you to know that metal will be calcium, because अगर strontium का color भी हम लिखेंगे तो that won't help us to distinguish these two metals. State symbol solid, gas, and solid. Then the next and last metal in group 2 which reacts with oxygen is barium. And barium reacts to form barium oxide. And in this case, the flame is like apple green, green flame or apple green. You green wala apple hota us tarah. And this barium's color has been asked in MCQs 2-3 times already. These colors came in our syllabus in 2016. और उसके बाद से MCQs में आपसे पूछ रहे हैं. So you should remember bright white flame when magnesium powder is burned in oxygen, red color for calcium, and green color flame for barium. So these are the colors that we see in case of these three metals. बाकी सबके product are like all oxides, and these are all white oxides. I mean, it's a general knowledge thing again के group 1 and 2 metal salts are white in color. So इसको मैं नीचे यहाँ लिख देता हूँ कि all oxides, like all these oxides formed are white in color. So easy reactions हैं. Do write them in rough when you revise your inorganic chemistry. Rough में लिख के एक दो दफा इनको याद करें, practice करें questions, तो then you'll rather enjoy inorganic chemistry. But again, if you do not memorize these small tiny details like color, flame and all, फिर ये आपके लिए बड़ा मसला बनाएगी inorganic, because it says at times कि a solid X is heated and all, it makes an oxide XO, and it was observed that the flame was green flame नजर आया. तो अब जब green वाली बात आ गई तो आपके syllabus में metal powder which gives green flame is barium, so it has to be barium, it has to be barium oxide. But if you're not memorizing और आपको याद नहीं है कि कौन सी metal का flame green आता है, तो you'll be blank about this reaction, आपको पता ही नहीं चलेगा आंसर्स क्या हैं. अब नेक्स्ट इसके बाद इसका ग्रुप 2 मेटल्स का रिएक्शन है विद क्लोरीन एंड वाटर, तो मेरे ख्याल से हम वो भी कर लेते हैं. नाउ आई विल गो ऑन द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड. अगर कोई क्वेश्चन हो बट आप पूछ लें, अनम्यूट करना पड़ेगा बट आप पूछ सकते हैं. एंड यू नीड टू स्टे इन क्लास विद योर ओन नेम प्लीज. मैंने अटेंडेंस लगानी होती है, फिर मुझे डाउट होता है कि ये बंदा कौन. नाइस. ऑलराइट, नाउ ग्रुप 2 का सेकंड रिएक्शन is reaction with chlorine. This one is quite easy, इसमें कोई observations नहीं है as such. So when group 2 metals are reacted with chlorine, we simply get chlorides formed as a result. तो सबकी equation हम लिख लेंगे. And like beryllium reacts with chlorine to make beryllium chloride. solid, metal will be solid, chlorine gas, beryllium chloride solid. All these reactions happen at room temperature. So again, if I'm not writing any heat on the arrow or flame, it means that this reaction could happen at room temperature. And this is already balanced equation. Here, magnesium plus chlorine would be magnesium chloride. Calcium plus chlorine would be calcium chloride. State symbols like the first equation, we state symbols सबके लिए. Strontium plus chlorine would be strontium chloride, and barium would be finally barium chloride. Easy reactions. Now, all these chlorides which are formed, these are all white ionic compounds. These are white solid. They're all ionic compounds except beryllium chloride is considered bit covalent, predominantly covalent, लेकिन बाकी सारे ionic compounds हैं. And naturally, they are generally soluble in water. कुछ physical properties भी आपको पूछते रहते हैं वो MCQs में. They're all white and they're solid at room temperature. They have ionic bonds, so they're ionic compound and soluble. These group 2 chlorides are soluble in water. So all these reactions happen at room temperature. No heat as such is required. बस इसको लिखें. फिर अगला हमारा reaction next है group 2 elements metals reaction with water. That one is really important reaction. So I'll just go on the next slide now. अगर कोई रह जाता है लिखने से तो I'll share the recording. ठीक है? I don't want to do that, but still some students told me they can't attend this class at this time, तो फिर मैंने कहा चलो मैं recording दे देता हूँ. अच्छा देखें, third reaction is reaction of group 2 metals with water. Now, when group 2 metals are reacted with water, we get these hydroxides, right? जैसे group 1 metals के hydroxide बनते हैं, इसी तरह group 2 metals react with water to make hydroxides. Like this beryllium reacts very poorly or slowly. In fact, at time in books it says no reaction. So better accept concept is that it reacts to make hydroxide and hydrogen gas, but this reaction is extremely slow reaction. And to balance it, we put 2 with water, and that would balance this equation. Metal solid, water liquid, and beryllium hydroxide would be partially soluble. At time you might see solid written with it. It makes a partially soluble suspension, white powder kind of thing, and hydrogen gas. फिर मैग्नीशियम का रिएक्शन इससे पहले भी हमने लिखा था थर्ड पीरियड एलिमेंट्स में. So over here we're considering the reaction of magnesium with liquid water, and that also is very slow reaction that makes magnesium hydroxide and hydrogen. Magnesium reacts with steam as well, right? वहाँ पे हमने दो reaction लिखे थे steam वाला भी, but steam में it makes metal oxide. Over here we're talking about reaction of these metals with water, liquid state में. So again with 2 it would balance. Even magnesium hydroxide is partly soluble, so both states are acceptable because it's just like in the test tube, if you put this magnesium metal in a like in water, so this magnesium would stay there for many hours, and every now and then we see small bubbles coming out, that's of hydrogen gas, but maybe after 5-6 hours you'll see this metal is gone and we see this muddy turbid solution. That muddy turbid solution has some magnesium hydroxide powder and some is dissolved. तो अगर आप उसको फिल्टर कर लें तो सॉलिड वाला उसके ऊपर आ जाता है. तो इसमें कोई हार्ड एंड फास्ट रूल नहीं है कि आपने सॉलिड लिख दिया है, क्विज ने लिखा. As we go down the group hydroxides की solubility increase होती है. The first two are like sparingly soluble. Calcium plus water would make calcium hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Same balancing, but calcium hydroxide is relatively more soluble compared to the first two. So I'll go with aqueous and gas. 2H2. Strontium plus water would be strontium hydroxide. अब strontium और barium का reaction water के साथ are very fast. In fact, these two are very slow reactions. This calcium wala is relatively moderate reaction, and the last two will be very fast reaction or vigorous reactions. And this also shows that as we go down the group, the reactivity of metals is increasing with water. Or in chemical state, solid, liquid, aqueous, and gas. And the last one is barium plus water would be barium hydroxide plus H2. So the last two metals, like barium especially, reacts vigorously with water. It reacts just like sodium does. Like आप sodium को water में जब डालते हैं, we've seen this in the last chapter even. Water के साथ sodium floats and reacts vigorously and bubbles and flame and everything. So just like that, barium reacts very fast with water, and because barium is extremely reactive metal, just like sodium, तो इसको भी हम kerosene oil में store करके रखते हैं so that it doesn't get oxidized on its own. तो ये हमारा third reaction है group 2 metals का with water. The first one was with oxygen, second chlorine, third water. अब इसमें हमारा एक ही और reaction है, that is reaction of oxides of group 2 with water, and acid भी हम कर सकते हैं because they're all basic oxide, तो acid से भी इनका reaction हो सकता है, but basically in syllabus it's with water. तो आई होप आप लोगों ने इसको लिख लिया है. इसमें कोई डाउट है, क्वेश्चन है, यू कैन आस्क इट. Now I'll just put it in numbering as in number 4, but that actually is not the reaction of group 2 metals itself. It's the reaction of oxides of group 2 with water. तो इसकी heading हम clear करके जरा बना देते हैं. Reaction of oxides of group 2 with water. Now when you react a metal oxide with water, we get a base or alkali and no hydrogen gas as a byproduct. ठीक है, when metal reacts with water, then only we get hydrogen gas, जो मैंने last equation में लिखी हुई थी. अब इसमें this beryllium oxide does not react with water. I mean, it resembles to aluminum oxide and it doesn't show reaction with water. इसके लिए preferable हम यही लिखेंगे, no reaction. अगर किसी क्वेश्चन में एग्जामिनर लिख दे कि ऑन वेरी हाई हीटिंग beryllium oxide could react with water to make a base, तो फिर आप beryllium hydroxide बना दें. But these reactions are again considered at room temperature. तो room temperature पे group 2 metal का जो beryllium oxide है, it doesn't show any reaction with water. And then magnesium oxide plus water would be magnesium hydroxide, and then calcium oxide plus water would be calcium hydroxide. These equations are balanced otherwise. और states जो last time हमने लिखी थी वही states आप इनमें भी use करेंगे. Strontium oxide plus water is strontium hydroxide, and then barium oxide plus water is barium hydroxide. Now this reaction is rather more important than the last one. उसकी reason ये है कि इसमें जो hydroxide बन रहे हैं सारे base, इनके लिए कुछ points वो आपसे पूछते हैं, मैं इनको इधर लिख देता हूँ. So as we go down from magnesium to barium hydroxide, the solubility of the bases increases. They're all like bases. In fact, their solubility increases. When the solubility increases, it means the barium hydroxide and strontium hydroxide, these two have a strong pH. Their pH ranges from 13 to 14. Whereas the first two, even including beryllium hydroxide, अगर आपको एग्जामिनर किसी क्वेश्चन में वो कहता है बनाएं उसको, so the first two would be considered weak bases. their pH would be around 8 to 10. You get to predict the pH values of these solutions. So आप pH जब भी predict करेंगे, you can do it in range of 2 numbers, not more than 2. So strontium barium hydroxide's pH 13 to 14, beryllium magnesium hydroxide weak base 8 to 10, and calcium hydroxide को आप 10 to 12 बता सकते हैं. That's moderately strong base. And then again, you need to remember that the solubility of these hydroxide increases. And then on this side, if they ask you, like, as from beryllium oxide to barium oxide, how would you comment on the reactivity of these oxides with water? We'll say there is an increase in reactivity with water. Increase in reactivity with water. जब हम इनको वाटर में डालते हैं, they react quickly as we go towards barium oxide and form barium hydroxide, strontium hydroxide, and they're like strong bases like with pH 13, 14. और इनकी states सबकी aqueous because they're strong bases. Calcium hydroxide is moderate or considered even weak base at time, तो उसको aqueous, और ऊपर वाले को आप solid / aqueous दोनों लिख सकते हैं. तो ये रिएक्शन इंपॉर्टेंट है. इसका एग्जामिनर आपसे बड़े इनडायरेक्ट तरीकों से क्वेश्चन पूछता है. मैं उसका एक आपको आइडिया देता हूँ. अगेन, मेटल एक्स burnt to make a metal oxide. That metal oxide reacted with water to make a hydroxide. So just from this word green flame, you can tell that metal would be barium. And when barium is reacted with water, like with oxygen, we'll be getting barium oxide. And when that is reacted with water, we'll be getting barium hydroxide. तो इसमें एग्जामिनर आपको इक्वेशंस बनवा लेगा स्ट्रक्चर्ड पेपर में. एमसीक्यूज में तो वैसे ही वो मेटल पूछ लेते हैं डायरेक्ट, फिर इन बिटवीन मेटल ऑक्साइड का फॉर्मूला पूछ लेंगे, पीएच पूछ लेंगे इसके सॉल्यूशन की. So they have all the options to ask different questions on these concepts. So these are like the 4 reactions that we have in group 2. इसके बाद एक और भी मैं लिख देता हूँ. As such, we expect you to know that now. Okay, these oxides are like basic oxides, so we expect them to react with acids even, right? लेकिन कोई as such वो syllabus में exclusively added नहीं है, but you get equations from that. वो भी लिख लेते हैं. और एक छोटा सा concept और है इसमें, वो फिर मैं ऐड करूँगा. It will be complete then. Now, if we just put it in the list as number 5, so oxides reaction with acid, group 2 oxides reaction with acid. Now, because group 2 oxides are basic oxide, they can react with acid to make salt, such as if I have magnesium oxide and we reacted with HCl. If we have strontium oxide and we reacted with HNO3, and then if we have this barium oxide and we reacted with H2SO4. I've not picked all the oxides. It's just to give you the idea. And again, as I said, we expect you to know these reactions already. Metal oxide and acid would make salt water. These reactions are called neutralization. Okay, again, इसमें हमें salt and water मिल रहा है साथ. So the first one would be magnesium chloride plus H2O. Balance it will be 2. The next one will be strontium nitrate salt and water. Just to balance HNO3, we'll put 2. Last wale we will get barium sulfate and water. And this one is balanced. So metal oxides will all be solid. Acids are always used aqueous. Otherwise, an acid doesn't react. Magnesium chloride, water would be liquid throughout. Magnesium chloride is aqueous. Strontium nitrate और barium sulfate की states आप लोग मुझे बताएंगे. I said it earlier कि आपने solubility rules याद करने हैं O level से. बेटा मुझे बताओ strontium nitrate की state.
Aqueous.
Aqueous. All nitrates are soluble, so these are all aqueous. And how about barium sulfate?
Solid.
Solid.
This one is solid. Sulfates are soluble except barium, mercury, lead, and silver, etc. तो ये इनकी states आप accordingly लगाएंगे. If the salt is insoluble, we'll put solid with it, and the one which is soluble, like nitrates and group 2 chlorides, we'll write aqueous with them. आई होप इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है. ये बड़े बेसिक रिएक्शन है बेटा. ये आते हैं, अगर ये भी एक बच्चा गलत लिखे, प्रोडक्ट गलत बनाए, तो बैलेंसिंग ठीक नहीं होगी. दे डोंट गिव यू एनी ECF on all these mistakes. ECF like error carried forward because you are doing it since IGCSE now. अच्छा, अब हमारा इसमें एक छोटा सा कॉन्सेप्ट है, डेफिनेशन टाइप है, वो हम कर लेते हैं, फिर ये कंप्लीट हो जाएगा. And that is that term is not in the syllabus as such, but the concept is. So I'd rather mention the term already, कोई इसमें मसला नहीं है बताने में. There is this concept that we call diagonal relationship. Diagonal relationship. So they expect you to know this concept, but they don't want you to know the term as such. तो concept बताने के साथ term बताने में मसला कोई नहीं, मैंने लिख दी है. So this relationship is like के जो group 2 के second period elements हैं, second period elements and then third period elements. Second period elements resemble third period elements diagonally. Like second period में group 1, group 2, group 3. तो second period में group 1 में we have this lithium, और इधर हमारे पास आता है सोडियम. फिर second period में after lithium we have beryllium and then boron. तो इधर हमारे पास आता है magnesium and aluminum. So diagonal relationship is that the element of second period, like lithium, resembles diagonally with the element of third period. So lithium का diagonal magnesium है, and beryllium's diagonal is aluminum. So why does it
Sir,
happen?
what do you mean resembles?
ये बेटा मैं सारा बताऊंगा. So let me write down the definition for diagonal relationship. That is the elements of second period resembles diagonally with element of third period, and because they're linked diagonally, we call it diagonal relationship. And resemblance is actually in physical and chemical properties. They resemble physically and chemically, like they're similar.
So lithium is like magnesium.
Lithium properties are like magnesium. बस आपने ये 4 एलिमेंट्स याद रखने हैं. आपने याद रखना है कि लिथियम की प्रॉपर्टीज मैग्नीशियम से रिजेंबल करती हैं, beryllium resembles aluminum. And the reason for that, actually they're not asked you the reason, but the reason also is, मैं इधर mention कर देता हूँ. These elements which resemble diagonally like lithium or magnesium, these elements have very similar atomic size. These elements have very similar or almost same atomic size. तो बिकॉज इनका एटॉमिक साइज सेम होता है. अगर आप लोगों को याद हो, मैंने आप लोगों को डिकम्पोजिशन पढ़ाई थी मोल्स में, और वहाँ पे हमने लिथियम कार्बोनेट की डिकम्पोजिशन बताई थी कि लिथियम कार्बोनेट डिकम्पोजेज लाइक ग्रुप 2 और ग्रुप 1 से डिफर करता है. और इसी तरह lithium nitrate decomposes like group 2 and differs from group 1 because its properties resemble to magnesium, and beryllium properties resemble to aluminum because of very similar atomic size. This concept is called diagonal relationship. ये आपको MCQs में कई जगहों पे मिलता है. They give you lithium in the question and they say which of the following metals show properties similar to lithium, or lithium shows similar to that metal. तो lithium के against आप magnesium choose करेंगे and beryllium के against aluminum. This trend becomes very weak as we go further. बोरॉन से आगे ये बिल्कुल खत्म हो जाता है. So technically it's between these four elements in terms of their properties. तो एफएससी में तो थोड़ा और डिटेल में है ये, लेकिन कैम्ब्रिज में तो ये नेम टर्म भी नहीं है, बट वो आपसे एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि ये चार एलिमेंट्स की प्रॉपर्टीज का बच्चों को पता हो कि ये रिजेंबल करती हैं. तो अब इट्स जस्ट द लास्ट मिनट एंड विद दैट इन फैक्ट हमारा ग्रुप 2 भी कंप्लीट है. कल भी 11 o'clock मैंने क्लास रखी हुई है, तो उसमें हम लोग ग्रुप 7 कंटिन्यू करेंगे. तो आई होप आप लोगों ने नोट्स भी ले लिए हैं, और आई विल शेयर द रिकॉर्डिंग फॉर दिस इन टुमारोज क्लास आल्सो. कोई क्वेश्चन वगैरह कुछ बात पूछनी है तो यू कैन आस्क दैट. चलें, that would be all then. Have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz, sir.
Allah Hafiz, sir.
Allah Hafiz.